Good evening. Welcome to the Spiritual but Not Religious Show. I'm your host, George Lewis. I've got a superb guest tonight, and as a matter of fact, I got a great guest for next week also. We've got Chad Lilly, who is a book publisher. His name of his company is Inner Circle Publishing, and he publishes spiritual books. So what he does fits really well with what we're doing. He's going to be coming to us direct from his blog talk radio show, which he was doing up to this point. He is also the author of, he's actually a poet. He's author of a book called Uncommon Sense. As a matter of fact, Chad is the publisher of Denise Lascano's book. Denise was our guest last week. She's the channel and the medium. My guest next week is from down under. She's in Australia. Her name is Maria Alita, and she bills herself as a spiritual dominatrix. Believe me, that's the first time I've heard of anything close to that. But I'll tell you what, she's pretty. The things she says are very powerful, and I can see where she does a lot of good in what she in her work. The name of her book that she has out now is called Whipping Souls into Shape and Creating Miracles. Now, her book that's due out here in 2010, I don't know, Tom, if we can, I think we can tell him the name of.
I'm not sure if I should bleep that or not, George.
Yeah, probably going to need to bleep that, is F the Miracle. Or no, I'm sorry, F the Fairy Tale, and
Go right to the miracle.
go right to the miracle. And so it's a pretty interesting concept. It certainly is an attention getter, that's for sure. I'm going to bring Chad on now. Have we got Chad ready to go?
We do have Chad. He's online.
Okay, let me. Hey, Chad, are you there with me?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good. How you doing tonight?
Excellent.
We hadn't talked for a while, but I've been looking forward to this conversation all night. One of the biggest challenges that authors have in today's world, and probably even like ever since publishing has been around, is finding a publisher, somebody who will actually publish their work for them. I am convinced that there are volumes and volumes of really good work that needed to be published that just never got there. Through whatever the circumstances might be. What I'd like to do with Chad tonight, if you don't mind, I'd like you to. What I wanted to do is show our viewers the fact that you're an author yourself. I think really lends a lot to the work that you do, because you know what an author goes through. I don't know, but that's what got you into publishing to begin with, was trying to publish your own work. And I'd like you to read. I believe are you going to read the poem that you published up on Facebook, or do you have another one?
No, that's fine. You guys had just mentioned that before the show, and you caught me off guard there. I was watching you on screen, and
Well, you know what? If you watch me on screen, you're going to run into trouble because of that. There's a lag time between we're live and then that's coming across the internet, and it's like it doesn't coincide, does it?
Not at all.
No.
George, thanks for having me on. I appreciate this. This would be my equivalent to my TV debut, so I want to take the opportunity to say, hi, Mom.
Well, I'm going to get you up here on screen. I've failed to do that. I'm going to push you on air here. There we go.
That's great, but I do appreciate being on with you. And yeah, you guys had mentioned the poem that I posted on Facebook and YouTube last week was written 2 days before I posted it, and it's called What I Call Poetry.
Uh-huh.
If you'd like to do that, then I'd be more than happy.
That'd be fantastic. Please do read that for us.
Let's see. But without warning, I open a WordPad document and begin to type, or I turn on some recording device and blindly start reciting, allowing the stream to run through me rather than trying to find its shorelines in the desert of mind or looking for reflections in the eyes of my audience. I'm spending more and more time just listening, silently attempting to better be able to repeat what's both intricate and simple at the same time until my words become unrehearsed verse read not with eyes, but felt inside by those aware. I'm both scorned and stoned by those without eyes to see or ears to hear the melody underneath the music. I'm only speaking for those with voices who are ready, willing, and able to repeat what they already see inside because they ain't getting it from me. Those being their piece in the infinite puzzle, adding each insight to our collection of collective visions. I welcome you all to stand up and bring yours to the table because this is my nature. To say what I see and shine inner spotlights on one of the hidden figures standing in the shadows and behind the scenes. Men without names or faces who pull strings while leaving no trace of their influence on the sheep they fleece daily with TV. And I repeat their secrets in plain sight, written in lines they can't even read, using their own double speak. And this is what I call poetry.
That was great. That's a nice piece, Chad. You're a very talented guy, and I totally appreciate what you're doing, and also the authors that you're helping. That's you know what this if you're watching and you see that Chad's right in the middle of my face, that's because there's a technical problem going on with Ustream. So I think just for our viewers, so you'll know. The technology won't allow Chad to be anywhere except live. When we archive this, all you're going to see is me. So what I'm going to do, rather than leave it the way it is, I'm going to put Chad up, and I'm going to leave you up there all the time if I can. Well, it's not even going to let me do that, Chad.
It's not playing your game, huh?
It's not playing my game. I'll tell you.
Perfect. No, he's in the corner.
There we go. Got you now. All right, good. So I'll tell you what I'd like to do. I have a lot of questions for you, a lot of things I want to talk about, but I know what's going to be uppermost in our viewers' mind, and that is, what can Chad's publishing company, Inner Circle Publishing, do for me as an author? And what I've got a friend's book. I thought what we'd do is take a book, a real one from a real author, and then just have you run it through your process. Tell us how you go about what you do and so forth. The book is called All Love. It's by a lady called Kat Forsley. Kat's a poet like yourself, and her book is a book of poetry. She's also a singer. If you go to YouTube and search on Kat Forsley, you'll find, 25 or 30 videos. Very, very talented gal, and she may be coming your way as far as publishing, Chad. So why don't you sell her on the idea of what you can do for her?
Okay. Well, first of all, we always start with the material. I mean, that's what you'd mentioned. How I started Inner Circle and why. It has been designed. We're looking for a specific kind of material, what we call awareness, and that has many different forms, whether it be in metaphysics, whether it be in poetry, it could be in children's stories, it could be in novels, it could be in fictional tales that contain elements of insight that are metaphysical, that have understanding in it. And so that's really the first thing that we're looking for with Inner Circle. And I would be interested in obviously seeing the work. That's always the first thing, to see if it is something that we're able to market within the design of how we function. That's very important.
So what I'm hearing you say is you don't just grab a book, no matter what it is, so you can make a buck. You're really looking for something that you can do good for the author. Is that right?
Well, not only that, but the honest truth is if you were thinking that way, it still wouldn't work, because it takes a whole lot to get an author that has no name recognition, a level of name recognition, before anybody anywhere ever makes $1 off of anything.
Right.
And if you really don't have that, then everything's just kind of a nice little dream. You can play the lottery,
Right.
and hope. But what we're really looking for is not only the material and the content that contains those things, but that's only the first step. The next thing is taking that material, seeing what format it's in. It's probably in a Microsoft Word document or whatever word processor program this person's written the material in. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, so we would take that Word document after looking at it, seeing the material, having a one-on-one discussion with the author. That's what's really important, is seeing the material that we have, and then seeing the ideas they have for it. A lot of our designs for the books, they're all 100% original, but they all come from a cooperative effort of myself and the author, or the designer that's working with them and the author directly. So that I want to look at their material, see what their ideas are, and then we can go from there. Then we can, iron out all the hundreds of details, the trim size, cover options, just all those, things that have to be ironed out. But more importantly, we get an idea of the vision, so that now we take this poetry and see how we can lay it out and best present it in a way that's going to represent the author and us in the best possible way in the market. And I hope that answers at least some of the questions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you, Chad. That's a good description of what you do. Boy, I'm still having trouble with this.
Technology is great, isn't it?
Yeah, well, when it's working, it's wonderful. When it's not working, it's like,
when it's working.
yeah, it's a real problem. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the old publishing paradigm versus the modern one, because everything has changed. The whole landscape of publishing has just radically changed here in the last 3 years, 4 years.
Yes, it has. Especially since when I started Inner Circle in about 2000,
Right.
I was explaining to authors what print on demand was. The authors didn't even know what it was yet. It wasn't a known thing. And as you said, about 2 years ago, they hit that tipping point where now 50% of all books sold everywhere is now print on demand. So within 7, 8 years, we went from, what are you talking about, to, oh yeah, the norm. And that is a rapid shift in any industry, yeah, especially one that's been around so many thousands of years and has always been stuck in that old paradigm that you're referring to, that many, many authors are still stuck in today, because they're probably unaware that they have the abilities with print on demand to put them in the world marketplace, to put their ideas out there, just like Stephen King, without giving up, that stuff like the rights and the net profit and your creative control and just the little minor things that are really important to an author.
Right. Well, let me just break in for just a second, if I could, Chad. Would you move your mic closer to your lips, because we're getting some complaints from the chat room that you're not coming in very loud.
Is that any better, George?
Yeah, that's a lot better. I think
Okay.
That's the second biggest problem we have with technology here is the sound coming from the guest on the show. So, but that's good. Thank you.
All right, no problem, and I'll try and speak up if that'll help.
That will help. Yeah, that's much better. Tom, is that what?
Yeah, it's a little bit better.
All right, good. So, did I interrupt you, or had you finished, or we?
We were just getting into the idea
Right.
of old paradigms, the idea that, yes, there's a lot of authors that are still stuck there, that are still thinking, I need, like you said, what can your publishing company do for me? Well, that's one mindset. It's not usually the mindset of owners, it's more the mindset of employees. And to be honest with you, that's how most people have been trained to think about writing.
Right.
They've been trained in an employee mentality to think, well, okay, here I am, the manufacturer of this product, which is called books. It's an art, but it is a product, and I manufacture it. I'm the only one that can manufacture it, and it's kind of unique, and I'm marketing it, I'm promoting it, I'm selling it. I don't know. It just seems logical that that person would probably get, the biggest percentage of the profit from it. And yet in the industry, as you know, that's not how it works. It's in fact the exact opposite.
It sure is.
That's why we have the mindset of, oh, please, Mr. Publisher, accept my work. See me as worthy to even put me out there. First of all, see, they've got it where you have to ask for permission, rather than why can't you just do it?
Right.
And that's the mindset that's probably being shifted as a result of these new print-on-demand abilities. We didn't have this ability to. We can have someone in Singapore order a copy of any of our books from anywhere in the world, including Inner Circle Publishing, and it prints out of Bristol, UK, and ships to them about the same cost as you pay for shipping across the United States.
Right.
And it can happen in a period of 6 days. from the time they press enter until UPS brings it to their doorstep. We didn't have that ability even 10 years ago. So understandably, it's just maybe the author's mindset that needs to catch up with where technology is presently at.
You know what? It looks like we also lost your video feed tonight too, Chad. I wonder what's going on there. Is there anything on your end that you see?
I am still seeing the same thing. I see my video playback, and I see that it is currently stuck. So maybe it's the internet gremlins.
Yeah, I think we got the gremlins at work tonight. That's for sure.
He can just re-enter, George. He knows how to do it. So
Why,
he wants to do that.
why don't you re-enter, and I'll re-accept you, and we'll get you back
No
up
problem.
on there.
All right.
Yeah, because it makes it a lot better if the guest is live with us here.
George, that's another thing that we do at Inner Circle is we not only educate authors on the options that are available to them,
Right.
such as that they can get their title into production, worldwide distribution via Ingram, into the game. You can have all those same things for less than you probably spend on your computer and still retain the rights to it. So at the end of the day, you're retaining enough of a net profit that if we can learn to work together to get you the same kind of exposure that, say, Stephen King or some other large player is getting, well, then you're in a very good position retaining that much of the net.
So you dropped a name there that some of our viewers may not really know the importance of, and that's Ingram. How about telling us the importance of Ingram and how they fit into this whole process of publishing and getting books to market?
Well, as anyone who's published a book knows, and tried to take that book that they self-published to, say, a bookstore to carry it, their
Right.
first question is always the same, and that is, who's your distributor? Well, when you're a self-published author, you don't have a distributor. You have a printer, and that's Kinko's or the print shop that whoever printed your book. Printing is not distribution. And the reason Ingram is such a big player in the publishing world is because every bookstore, or at least 95% of them in the United States or North America, get their books from Ingram.
Right.
Doesn't matter, folks, if you're buying it from Barnes & Noble or Amazon. Doesn't matter, because they're turning around and buying it from Ingram. And that's how book distribution works. Ingram is important as an author because if you don't have that, these major key players, the booksellers, your Barnes & Noble, your Borders, all of your corporate-owned brick-and-mortar stores, these guys are under contract to only get books from their distributor, which
Right.
is Ingram.
Which is the largest distributor there is.
Right. And if your title is not in Ingram's what's called books in print, their catalog, that is
Right.
if it's not in there, well, then it's not that the booksellers don't want to work with self-published authors. It's not even that they don't see value or even dollar signs in what they're doing, because bookstores are only there for 40%, folks. That's the only reason there's bookstores.
They want their cut, and that's it, and that makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why they sell the Satanic Bible and the King James Version, because it doesn't matter. They just
doesn't
want
matter.
those 40%. And that's why they're there, and that's fine. That's the way the system works. But in order for an author to even play the real game, you have to have the backing of Ingram to have your books available, because they're under contract to get them from Ingram. If they can't get your book through there, then they can't work with you.
Well, one of the things I found, Chad, is I have an ex-sister-in-law who owns a bookstore, a metaphysical bookstore. Matter of fact, it's maybe one of the, if not the best, it's one of the nicest ones in the country. And her problem wasn't that she didn't want to carry the book, because she got constantly having authors come in, people that she knows, was that once the book is on the shelf, there's no real way for them to track it and to do the reorder, because everything is done, it's all computerized. And so, when the stock level gets down to a certain number, then it's automatically reordered. But if it's outside of that system, then they have to have people watching. If you got 10 or 12 books in there that aren't in the system, you have a real problem.
Yes, and unfortunately it works on the other side as well. There's some booksellers that are too small, and they're independent stores, and their volume is considered too small by Ingram for them to even get an Ingram distribution account.
Uh-huh.
So now, you've got it on both sides, but you're right. Even in a small bookstore like that, like you said, a person or an author with a book that has no distribution, what happens when that print run runs out? Can you get it next month? Can you get it next year?
Right.
And that's another reason why self-published books in the industry are just like leprosy, and nobody wants to touch them because they don't have the distribution. You can't really sell them in the market, even in the automated system that you're talking about.
So how has the Kindle affected your marketing concept? And by the way, folks, Kindle is Amazon's book reader. It's a little computerized screen, and digital publishing is becoming huge. You know, it's a little hard for, the tactile book reader who picks up their book and they like holding the book but everybody's getting older, and that's going to fade away. These young kids are used to picking up the digital. They're used to reading on digital. It's going to change the world completely. It's happening now. How does that fit within the frame of what you do?
I am in no way opposed to digital media. I think it's a great idea. We use it in the sense of downloads,
Right.
content distribution, audio, video, a lot of ways. So I'm not opposed to that. Kindle doesn't affect us simply because we don't use Kindle. They do not offer from a publisher standpoint, and then even onto the author. If you're going to give the book away, let's give it away to people we like, not Amazon.
Right.
Sorry. They're cool and all, but I know the 40%, that's what they get, but I'm just, no, they don't offer enough for our content at this point. Maybe they'll change that. But again, that's back to that publisher mindset of we need Amazon to distribute our content digitally when, George, we're doing that right now.
Right.
We're distributing our content digitally. We're not asking for permission. We're just doing it. And if you packaged it and marketed it, well, we wouldn't need Amazon to do that for us. And we are seriously considering that because we do see the trend. I want to combine both. I still want the physical book because I like books. I'm
Right.
sorry.
Right.
I want to sit in the tub with a book, not a computer. Okay. So I want a book, but I would like to think of an interesting way to combine the two, to where you would have a printed book, a digital, a printed medium, the book, but inside the book there would be special links where you would go and be able to access digital content only from having the book.
Extra content. I guess your voice is dropping off again, Chad. I'm gonna have to.
Okay.
I'll just keep prodding you a little bit here, because I know I know our viewers want to hear what you have to say, because it's like right out of they don't get this opportunity to talk with the head guy. One of the things that I'm impressed with you and your company, Chad, is that you've been in business doing this since 2000. In this day and age, that's really impressive. You got 10 years of business, 10 years of doing business with publishing it and with authors. And there's so many scam artists out there that come in, they're here, they got a bright, shiny front, and they look great and promise you the moon. And once they've got, they get all the money they can, but then what happens is they get up to a point where they can't deliver on all the promises and they're gone. And I've seen just and talked with too many authors that have been burned like that, and that was one of the reasons that I had you on the show. Is you are solid and you've been in business for a good while.
I speak with authors every day, and a woman today who went through a similar situation. Not so much a publishing scam. I mean, the
Right.
biggest publishing scam would be commercial publishing, where the author or the publisher takes your material, puts it out, and then pays you a small percentage of it. That's actually the biggest scam.
Well, they
But
sure
there's
take
a lot
authors to the cleaners, that's for sure.
But there's a lot of different versions of it, and I've heard the stories of investing all this money in marketing, in things that just a little common sense would tell you probably wouldn't work unless you already have name recognition. But a
Right.
lot of these print-on-demand places, they sell authors these outrageous marketing packages. I mean, $5,000, $10,000, doing all this stuff, and after they did it, like a woman told me today, she saw absolutely nothing in return. And I'm just shaking my head because I've made that mistake before. I know not to do that. I would have told you, no, don't put $10,000 in buying advertising, because A, nobody reads the paper, and even B, the people that do read it, they don't care because they don't know your name.
Exactly.
Let's work on name recognition. We can get that for free, and it only takes you and I working collectively to get it.
So you spend a great deal of time with an author as far as name recognition is concerned. What do you have someone who does that work for you, or do you just do you have the author involved and you guide them through this process of getting name recognition? How do you handle that?
I do most of it one-on-one, especially now that we're expanding to the point where we're still considered to be, Inner Circle is still considered a small publishing house.
Right.
We publish 70 titles, but that's still small.
Right.
And we're now up to the point where we're putting out about 6 titles a month. So that's still small, but yet that's where we're at. And what I'm doing now is I do spend most of my time working with authors in whatever capacity they want to do this. Because, George, there's some authors that write a book because they have different motives rather than becoming an A-list best-selling author. Okay,
Right.
it's understandable. For instance, one of our authors is a sociology professor in UCLA. He teaches a course from his book every semester. He wrote the book because he wanted to write the book, and he teaches it for the course. But he's not so much interested in coming on your show or coming on, any
Sure.
show promoting the book, and that's fine. So we can work with authors in whatever capacity they really want to do it. If you're one of those crazy people out there, like me, and you really want to do this, you maybe did a lot of other things in your life, but this is why you're here. If you're here to write and have your message heard, and you really want to do that, and especially right now, you're starting to feel the real pull of, I need to get this out and do this because it matters, it means something. I want to talk to you folks, and if you're really willing to work, I can show you how to get name recognition.
Right. I'm just. I think I've got you back on the screen again here, Chad.
Hi.
So we're back
Hi
on
again,
air.
Mom.
Hey, Mom. So speaking of Mom, where are you coming from, Chad? Where do you reside?
I'm in Yakima, Washington.
Yakima, Washington. What time is it out there? What, 3 hours difference from here? We're about 9:30 here. So you're
28, yes.
okay. So yeah, that's right. You're back the other direction. I some of the people we talked to going the other way, and in the United Kingdom, there's 4 o'clock in the morning. They're up,
Right.
talking with us. So let's talk about the commercial trade publishers and the vanity presses and the cooperative publishers. Give us an idea of what's the differences in these and what do they mean to an author thinking of getting their book published.
Okay. We'll start with the big one, the commercial trade publishers.
Right.
These are the folks that tell you to put your name in the upper left corner with double space and 1-inch margins and blah, blah, blah. And you have to have an agent to submit and all of these gatekeepers that make it very, very difficult for your work to even ever make it.
So we're talking about Stephen King's publisher or any.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
On that level, any commercial trade publisher that you're going to be submitting to.
Okay.
That you're asking them to buy your rights for your work, put it out, and give you a percentage. That's commercial trade publishing.
Right.
And there are advantages to it. When we talk about folks like Stephen King, we have to realize, guys, there's only literally 7 people on this planet that have the kind of audience that a Stephen King or a Danielle Steele or a I can't think of her name.
Really, you're talking only 7 people?
Literally.
Huh.
Literally.
That's pretty amazing.
And that's according to Stephen King. I mean,
Right.
I think he knows, and that's what he says, and I believe him, that there's literally only a handful of best-selling authors. If you go to the New York Times list and you look at those people, that's who has it. And it is an uncommonly small amount of people who actually have that many readers.
Right.
So you have to understand that that's what these commercial guys are looking for.
The one big hit?
They have a bottom line. If the book isn't going to, if the print run, the initial print run isn't going to sell, meaning if it's not going to make $150,000,
Right.
it's not going to sell that many copies right off the bat, nobody makes $1 until after that anyway. Now,
Is that the break-even point, 150,000?
It depends on the run they do. A lot of commercial publishers, they'll do a large-scale run overseas because you get them at a very, very cheap cost.
Right.
So, and then that way they can afford to flood the market with them and
I
do
see.
a lot of other stuff. But you have to understand that if they don't see the bottom line with your work, let's just say you have a book that's only going to sell 10,000 copies throughout the course of your entire life.
Right.
And that's just the case of it. That's your market. You're not writing Danielle Steele fictional love romance novels for people to read. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but I don't read it. Just
So
not
that's
my
pretty
thing.
much the median range for new authors without name, with some name recognition is 10,000 copies. Is that pretty much a norm?
It just depends on the print run date that you do a contract with.
Right.
It really depends on the individual author. But the bottom line is, I want to point out, is that these commercial guys see this as an equation. And if at the end of the equation, if they only see that, well, this book is only going to sell 9,000 copies or 149,000 copies, that wouldn't justify the print run. So guess what? You get the nice little rejection letter that says, what? Thank you for your work. However, we're not interested in publishing work like this at this time, or whatever.
Right. The little
That
pink
means
slip.
we don't see the bottom line in your work, and that's that's the commercial route.
Right.
You mentioned the vanity route. That's why there is a vanity route, is because it is so difficult to get into the game of being considered, valuable enough to go commercially. A lot of people went vanity, which means you're paying someone an exorbitant amount of money to do the minimal amount for you, so you can feel better about having your book.
As a matter of fact, Chad, I have some personal experience with that. Back in 1972, I wrote a book of poetry, and there was a vanity press called Vantage Press at that time, and way back then they were charging, they wanted $5,000 to
Yes,
for a print
I
run,
remember that.
which is a huge amount of money today. It's like it wouldn't even be possible. Obviously, I didn't do it, but.
And that's an example of that, of a vanity press.
So they make their money basically, Chad, from the author themselves and not from selling books. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
And they'll publish anything. You can send them Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Exactly.
Publish that. No
Right.
problem. Now, when you mention cooperative publishers, Inner Circle is, we would be labeled as a cooperative publisher because the authors are not only financing the production costs, but they are integral. They're very important in creating the marketing force that gets us out to the amount of people we do every day without paying for it.
I got you. So and they have real. It sounds like they have real access to you, Chad. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Which is unusual in this business, to be able to to get with a guy who really has the experience and knows what he's doing.
Well, you'd mentioned before about we rarely get to talk to the head guy. This is kind of a headless monster in the sense that Inner Circle works like nature. It's a symbiotic thing, and I don't know if I would be, I might have started the ball rolling, but I don't know if I'm the head guy or not, because every author that comes in, the author that comes in tomorrow is going to give us ideas we've never thought about, and those ideas are going to go forth and become part of Inner Circle Publishing. And we've had a lot of authors that. Our authors are not just authors here. They're a part of the Inner Circle. They're in the same boat, we call it, and we understand that we're crossing the ocean. We understand what we have to do, and we're willing to row, but we'd much rather be in this boat than doggy paddling across the ocean.
I can certainly appreciate that. It's the old idea of one stick or a bundle of sticks and the strength that goes with it.
Hey George, I've got a question coming out of the chat.
I'll tell you what, Chad. We had a nice segue here for a question coming out of the chat. You want to give it to Chad?
Yeah, I've got a question coming out, Chad. How you doing? Somebody here wants to know if social media is helping you with your distribution.
Absolutely. It is a perfect window to the entire world. If you have any message to promote, book, CD, ideas, thoughts, anything, you need to be talking, you need to go where the people are. And the people are on social media sites, Facebook, MySpace, Twitter mostly. I am somewhat of hi, my name is Chad, I am a Twitter addict. I've posted somewhere over 30,000 tweets to my profile, and I enjoy the interaction to be able to talk with get out to somewhere around 3 million people a day. And back to, that's not paying for it. That's not buying advertising space. That is utilizing what's freely given to us, and it's right at our fingertips.
Is that what you hit with Twitter? 3 million a day?
Yeah.
That's
is more than I
powerful.
do.
That's very
Yeah.
powerful.
And what's more powerful is the response, because I only get to that many people. I don't have that many people following me.
Right.
I get to that many people because the people who are listening to me are sharing. They see value in what I'm sharing, and so they share it too. And that viral ability gives you the ability to really reach out and influence people if you have a message, if you have something, to say.
Are you able to track the retweets, which I believe you're talking about now, that people,
Yeah.
you're able to track that?
Yeah, something called Twitter Analyzer. It's great if you're on Twitter and you want to see, what your reach, your influence, your unique, all of those stats. You can
I'm on
see
it.
all of those with Twitter Analyzer, and it's the best one I've found. I do like it because it shows you how many unique users. When I get out to 3 million a day, I might get out to 200,000 unique users. Those
Right.
are people that are hearing me for the first time, and that is powerful.
That's helpful for us, Chad. I appreciate that. Tom just made a note of that. We'll be using that ourselves. Tom handles our Twitter site on a daily basis. So.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, it's going to be a good help. And being able to know, how effective we have been or ineffective, whatever the case may be, we really hadn't had that ability. So let's, we've been talking about the technical side of this a lot, and that's helpful. But an author writes a book, what's uppermost in their mind, or at least I would assume is uppermost in their mind, is about being successful at publishing their book. So
They want to be heard.
exactly. Why there are huge numbers of authors that fail, that just don't make it?
They
Can you
give up.
can you tell us what goes on there? What makes most authors fail?
That's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that. First of all, they give up. Now, the reasons they give up are the following, but that is the ultimate thing: is they give up.
Right.
All of a sudden, they've published a book. They've spent who knows how many years or how much time writing the book, putting it together, going through the publishing process, either getting a publisher or publishing it themselves, but going through this whole ordeal. And then once it's out, they realize they don't know what they're doing. They have no idea, unless you have some marketing background and are familiar with the tools at hand.
Right.
Then you don't know what to do. Then there's the people that will realize that and go, okay, unconscious incompetence. I don't know what I don't know. Okay, teach me. And so we can teach them. We can work with them and say, okay, first of all, here's where you're at. Here's what you need to do. You need to sign up. You need to get a Twitter account. You need to do this, blah, blah, blah. We can go through step by step, show them what they need to do. One of the reasons that authors fail is because it takes several different combinations for an author to be successful with anything. And these might even carry over into life for all I know. But the three things that the combination that it takes is, one, you have to be interesting.
Right.
You have to be able to present whatever your message is in an interesting way. And if you can't do that, it doesn't matter how great your message is, how factual it is, what it could do for the world. People will not respond because it's just how humans are. So you have to, the author themselves, have to be able to set them on a stage, and once they're on it, they have to be able to be their star, whatever they are, whatever it is their message is, they got to be able to say it.
Right.
That's key, because if you don't have that, none of the other things are going to matter. Now you can have that, you can be great and really be great, but then after that, you have to have someone on the back end that is not you, that tells other people how great you are.
Got that third-party influence where it makes it
exactly.
more right.
You have to have cooperative efforts of someone else that's willing to show other people you. Because I can't come to you and say, "Hey, George, guess what? I'm great."
Right.
You know how great I am.
Exactly.
It's not going to work.
Well, you can, but I'm not going to pay a lot of attention to you, Chad.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Whereas I can turn around and say, "George, have you met this Denise Lascano woman? I mean, she not only talks to dead people, but she's been able to help people that are in recovery." I could go on and on and on about Denise Lascano.
By the way, she was a superb guest, and didn't she come through, Chad? Was that how we ended up with it? The other way around?
No, I think the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is that by me telling you that, now all of a sudden you're receptive to me because I'm not the asshole. I'm the fan.
Right.
When you promote yourself, you're the asshole. When you promote another, you're just a fan. Nobody minds a fan. Nobody likes an asshole.
And that's exactly the case, too, isn't it?
Right. And the third element is it takes more than one. There is not one person, not even Stephen King, that could do this alone. It takes, for you to compete with the media machine and the marketing machine and CNN and Fox News and ABC and all this other garbage, in order for you to get any attention against all of that, you're not going to get it alone. I can't get it alone. It takes the cooperative efforts of many people all focusing all this attention on the same source. And that's key.
So speaking of attention, in talking with Denise last week, I believe she mentioned that you're trying to get her on Ellen DeGeneres. Is that
Yes.
is that part of what you do?
That is our active campaign in the moment, yes.
Right.
I would like to see Denise Loscano sitting on the couch with Ellen, and I would like the whole world to know about her overnight.
So these are the kinds of things, if given the right circumstances, the right book, the right author, that you try to make happen. Then.
Yes, but you take that author like the woman that you're mentioning, that's
Right.
a poet. Okay, I'll tell you, and I'll tell her straight up, poetry is the hardest thing in the world to sell.
Absolutely.
I'm a poet, and I have
Absolutely.
a publishing company, and I'll still tell you that it's the hardest thing. Then am I saying don't do it? No. I'm getting ready to publish my third poetry book. Yeah. No, we don't have a choice. This is what we hear. This is what we write. So what I would do is I would take her and I would say, first of all, what is your talents? Where do you like? Do you like to speak? Are you good on the radio? Is
Right.
that your preference? Do you mind going on this show, Spiritual Broadcasting Network, talking with, can you be on video? Or do you like Twitter? Find out where their assets are, and no matter where they are and no matter what their level of recognition is, you start from there. And it's going to take a long time. That's another reason authors fail. They
Right.
give up before it happens. It's like farming. If I tell you about this great idea called farming and you say, okay, sounds like a good idea, I'll give it a shot. And so you start planting seeds and you water it, you follow the instructions, do the cycles, everything is great. And, about 3-4 months, maybe even 3-4 weeks or a month or 6 weeks later, you still don't have any food. Nothing. And you just throw the shovel down and say, forget it. I'm just, this farming stuff does not work. I'm not going to do it. And they give up. When the process is working, and it's not visible yet, but it takes a long time, but once that whole field has been brought to harvest, now you've got 40 acres of corn that comes overnight.
Right. Well, Chad, there's another dynamic that, as an author, that I experienced, and that was, when I wanted to write a book, and so I got started on writing the book, and I, like early on, it was the end result that I was seeing. The all the glamour that supposedly comes with being an author, and but as I wrote the book, what I found was I really liked the process of writing the book. And I liked the solitude. I liked, everything that went with it. Once the book was done, it was pretty shocking to come out and try and move from that artistic side of myself to that
Marketing.
to the marketing part of it. It was like,
Yes.
whoa! It was like a big wind hits you right in the face.
Yes.
And you're really kind of a buffer for that, aren't you?
Yes, because, again, you can't do it all yourself. You're going to spend as much, if not more time, marketing what you write than you did writing it.
Right.
So if you want to be successful anyway. And so that's just what it takes. So if that being the case, that's no problem. But you do need the help because you don't want to spend 10 and 12 hours a day just marketing because you're still an author. You still have ideas. You're still writing. It's never going to end. And you need help with other people that are promoting you while you're sleeping or writing or doing something else.
Yeah, because the reality is, if you're trying to sell your books one book at a time, you can't you can't create a living for yourself doing that. You'll starve to death.
It would depend on how much you were making per book.
Well, even at that, even if you're selling 10, 20 books a day, you'd have to start with a $20 book before you're going to start having enough money to put food on the table.
I want to use your numbers because that would be fascinating.
That
You
would
said
be
20 a day. And I would love for Inner Circle authors to really grasp this because I don't know if you realize it, George, but you just gave them a big secret. It's focusing on that. See, everybody thinks, oh, I want to sell a million copies.
no.
Well, how
Yes,
do you do that? One at a time.
one at a
first
time.
of all. Right, but the number's so big that, forget it, I'll never make it, I'll just give up. But yet, what you just said is key. 20 a day, and there's 30 days in a month, so that's 600 copies a month. Let's just say you were retaining $10 a copy. That's $6,000 a month.
Right.
How are you doing now?
We lost your audio, didn't we?
His audio
Oh,
went.
did we lose
There it is.
audio?
Oh, there.
It's
Now
back.
you're back.
It's
Now
back.
you're back.
No, okay. No, I don't know when I cut out there, but if you did sell 20 copies a month, 20 a day, that would be
$6,000 a month.
600 copies a month, and it would equal 6,000 a month.
Right.
And that's because you're retaining that net. So again, how many books do you have to sell to make it, what you need? I don't know. That's different for every person. But again, we can show you the numbers, and if we can work together to do that, then it's not out of the question.
Most authors I know out there, Chad, would love to have $6,000 a month coming in and give them some time to actually even do more writing, huh?
From their writing, from what they love.
Right.
Exactly. And even if they only made just enough to whatever their job is, whatever they're making. I've noticed a lot of authors and artists, they're doing what they love, they're doing their art, but then they've got to do something for money as well.
Absolutely.
And so they have to divide their time. Whereas if they just made the exact same income from their artwork as they do with their job, well, now you get to do artwork full time. No matter how much money you make, you're rich. Forget about it.
So let's go back to and talk a little bit about commercial publishers, the big publishing houses that that we find in New York, and let's talk about a couple things. Matter of fact, you mentioned a word earlier, gatekeepers, and but let's add blacklisted titles in there and tell us a little bit about what goes on with gatekeepers and blacklisted titles, and some of the pitfalls, some of the traps that we can fall into.
I can only speak from my own experience, and that is limited. But I started all of this. I started in Circle Publishing because of that little blacklist.
Uh-huh.
When I wrote my first book, A Day in the Mind, it's 359 pages of what I call poetry. And again, you just heard a sample of what I call poetry.
Right.
This does have some things in it. I cover topics like government and religions and every topic that you're not supposed to talk about. I'm a poet as the first thing on the list. So I wrote this book, and I thought, I'm going to send this to this large publisher in San Francisco, famous for the beatnik poets. I thought, yeah, this is in line. They'll see this as valuable. I'll send it to them. I want to get this published. They sent me a handwritten half sheet of paper, written and signed by Maureen, saying, thank you for the opportunity to review your work. However, we are unable, I always love that word, unable to publish material like this. And that shocked me. That made me realize right off the bat, the first submission I sent out, that, whoa, it would be easier to publish this myself than it would convincing these commercial publishers to publish it, to see value in it. I've later come to find out that you might as well forget that, because if you have a message that is contrary to what the machine wants to spit out, you will never, I'll repeat that, you will never sit on Oprah's couch. You will never sit in a place of commercial media that's owned by the same 5 to 7 corporations. You will never be on one of those outlets speaking a message that is not in line with what they want to pitch. So if you write that stuff, you can waste your whole life submitting it to those commercial publishers, and they're not going to touch it. They can't.
Well,
they know better.
That kind of makes sense, though, for a large publishing company, doesn't it, Chad? That they have a particular kind of work that they're looking for, and that anything outside of that really wouldn't fit into their marketing plans. So, are you saying that these 6 or 7 publishers have just a kind of like a cookie cutter approach and don't include enough? I'm not sure I quite.
Okay, I'm saying that the same group of people that control everything you see on TV, read in your newspapers, read read in commercial publishing, all of them,
Mm-hmm.
everything, all of that is controlled by the same corporations that have a very succinct agenda that they're following. If you come along and start saying a message that is anywhere like against that agenda,
Yes.
you will never get any airplay. You will never be put on their chessboard to play your game. It's just not how it works.
I totally understand that. So
And
so
that's another reason we started this, is so that those with a message that maybe has something else to say, we can have that heard too.
so something that's a little left of center, they've got a shot at coming to you and getting it published if it's good work. In other words,
Absolutely.
yeah, if it's
Absolutely.
good writing.
And it's not, that's a good point. It's not myself judging whether or not it's quote unquote good work.
Right.
Because that is a perception.
Sure is.
A lot of people would read my poetry and say, whatever, this is not good work. I wouldn't publish this.
Right.
Well, that's why I did. So that's where you have to look at whatever your work is, and how people are going to respond to it. It's just how they're going to respond to it. But at least,
Right.
why should you have the same opportunity? What if a lot of publishers told J.K. Rowling, this will never sell. Nobody wants to read a kid's story about wizards.
Right.
It won't work. They told the Beatles it wouldn't work. They told Led Zeppelin it wouldn't work.
Right.
They told me it wouldn't work. And they were wrong. All of them.
So tell us, you're doing a whole lot of things for authors. Is there anything that you're doing that nobody else does, no other publisher does for their authors? I mean, you got something that really differentiates you from the mix out there?
I would say, yeah. I mean, aside from the unprecedented net that authors are retaining on all of their own direct sales, and even through bookstores, aside from that, I would say the cooperative aspect of how this really works.
Right.
To give you an example, let's just use it for instance that let's say Denise Lascano. Let's say she does get on Ellen next week, and she's sitting on there on Ellen, and Ellen's in love with Denise, and it just says, Denise, where can we get your book? And she says Inner Circle Publishing. Even if she doesn't say that, even if she says any bookseller in the world, millions of people do what? They run out and buy Denise's book tomorrow. Or millions of people instantly go to Inner Circle Publishing. We've seen this. We've had authors on coast to coast in front of 14 million people and have 1 million hits to a website overnight. See 15,000 in sales in 3 hours. That's the kind of stage we're talking about being on. Now, when we have that, here's something that Inner Circle offers authors that nobody else does. You publish with any other large commercial publisher, there's not one thing that Stephen King ever does that ever promotes your book, or any of the other thousands of the books that they have. Not one of those things ever carry over exponentially to promote your book.
Right.
Inner Circle Publishing has been designed like nature to operate symbiotically in a way to where everything that every author ever does to promote their book promotes yours. Remember how we can't do it alone? It takes all of us. That's another reason why we're looking to work with more authors, because the bigger we get, this has been designed to ensure that the bigger it will get.
So why don't we do this? Why don't you tell us a bit about some of the titles that you have, some of the titles you've published?
Sure.
Maybe give us some stories about your interaction with the author, things that happened, and just some things that will personalize what you're doing.
I got to mention Lilly.flv. He's no longer with us anymore.
Uh-huh.
Rick was the first author that we ever published, other than me. He was the first outside author that I spent 1.5 years explaining how this works, and of course I had nothing to show for it at the time. It was just a crazy idea.
Sure.
I didn't have any books published, so it was very difficult to convince people that what you're saying could even be possible. But Rick saw it, and I told him the whole thing, and he looked at me and was so, yeah, obviously, he could see it right off. And he was the first author we published. And I just want to mention Rick because I hope he knows now that what he did was inspire me to go forward, because I was at those times where I thought, well, this farming thing isn't working.
Right.
I'm going to give up. Okay, and Rick came along at a time where I was about to throw the shovel down and said, hey, I see that little sprout of corn sticking up over there. So he came along and really did a lot, and he was with us for a couple years before he passed on. When I met him, he was passing from end-stage renal failure, so he was undergoing dialysis.
Oh boy.
But he really contributed a lot to us, including Revolution Press, which was, by rights, his contribution, his idea. Remember I told you that authors that come in and begin working with us, they're going to have ideas tomorrow, and it's going to change this company because they have just as much voice in this as I do.
Sure.
I'm
Hey,
not the
tell
head
us
guy.
tell us a little bit about Revolution Press. How does that fit in here? What is that?
Revolution Press is another imprint that is underneath Inner Circle Publishing, and we opened it 4 years after we started Inner Circle because all of a sudden after Rick came in, books came in every month after that. Every month, literally, new contacts, new authors, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. Well, Rick was working with me to the capacity where he was working as an editor as well, so he was seeing a lot of the submissions that were coming in, and he was seeing what I was turning away. And he said he was the one that told me, you're doing the same thing as those commercial publishers.
Right.
I said, no, I'm not. And he said, yes, you are, because this material comes in. This guy's got a detective novel that has nothing to do with spirituality, nothing to do with metaphysics. What do you tell him? And I tell him, well, it's not within the genre that we're in. He was right. I was doing the same thing.
Right.
And that's where I realized that we had a successful publishing model that was allowing authors to publish their books and always be commercially successful, meaning they make more than it ever costs to publish their book. But we were turning away about 10 to 12 people a year that just wasn't writing this metaphysics, this spirituality stuff.
Right.
So that's where Revolution Press came from. Just the idea that we wanted to give the same opportunity. Why should we be the one, even me, why should I be the one to decide that what you see value in isn't worth putting in print if you believe it?
So basically, what I'm hearing you say, if we got some potential authors out there that that want to talk with you about publishing, they don't have to be in the spiritual model. If they got something other than that.
Not at all. We're open to all genres, especially, like I said, with Revolution Press. And even to Inner Circle Publishing, awareness still it spans a large distance.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've got, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes left here, Chad. It's gone pretty fast tonight. I think that, I know for sure that when I first had to take a look at this self-publishing stuff, had I been able to talk with a guy like you and get the, what I'm hearing is years of experience and years of hard knocks that I wouldn't necessarily have to go through by using you. So at this point, we've talked about a lot, but is there anything that we haven't really gotten to that you think is important you like to tell our viewers?
Just the fact that we do have the one-on-one aspects of anything that you need as an author. You not only have direct access to me, but you have direct access to all the Inner Circle authors that are bringing in. Again, we meet an author tomorrow. They bring to the table their knowledge, their experience. One of the principles we use is a mastermind principle.
Oh yes,
So
absolutely.
we're putting all those ideas on the table. So we have a mastermind and a wealth of knowledge and information that's not just based on my experience in publishing, but it's the collective of experience of over 45, maybe 50 authors that are contributing on different levels. What we're really interested in is those people who want to be active. And those of you who are authors who have published with print-on-demand places that aren't giving you the type of support that you need, that aren't giving you 100% of your net, that aren't representing your best interest, still contact us because we can work with you as long as you still have the rights to your material.
One of the things we haven't done, Chad, and I apologize for that. We haven't really told people how they can contact you, your website, and how they get a hold of you.
InnerCirclePublishing.com or RevolutionRevPress.com, either way. But if through InnerCirclePublishing.com, you can get everything as far as you had mentioned Aware Talk Radio. We're live 7 nights a week doing that. But on Inner Circle Publishing has all the links for all of our videos. We're doing a lot more on YouTube. I kind of like that. It's like having your own TV show.
Yeah, YouTube is great. So you do a radio show on Blog Talk Radio 7 nights a week?
Yeah, we're we're live 7 nights a week. We're actually live some days. We have 2 different live shows, 2 different times a day, and that's growing as well. So if you're interested in metaphysical craziness and awareness, we'd love to hear from you on Aware Talk Radio. We are live 7 nights a week.
So you're a pretty busy guy.
We don't take vacations here. This is what we do, George.
I'm sure of that. I can't think of anybody, Chad, that I'd rather have working for me. I have a friend here in Sarasota who wrote a really nice little book, and there was a guy here locally who was trying to do something very similar to what you're doing. And my friend paid him to do it, and then he got a hold of me and said, "Hey, you really need to hook up with this guy." Well, I talked with him, and you know, the story that he gave me became real obvious to me that there was no way he could live up with the promises that he was given, you know. And within 3 or 4 months, you know, like the guy, everybody's angry with the guy, and they're ready to lynch him, and finally he's just gone and out of town. And so, gosh, folks, I tell you what, it's really important who you get to help you with your self-publishing. And I can't recommend Chad enough. I can't recommend Inner Circle Publishing enough. You know, like the Denise Lascano from my last week guest, she's just totally pleased with what he's done for her at this point. I think
George,
we're.
I know we're out of time, but I just wanted to mention that a lot of our authors have published, well, some of them have published 6 books with us. So a lot of authors have been with us for quite some time.
Oh, it's fantastic. Listen, I have enjoyed having you on the show tonight. And if you get somebody who you think might like to be on the show that fits and we'd like to have on, give us a buzz, will you, Chad?
I would absolutely love to, and I'll send you a list of people I think that you would just love to speak with.
That'd be fantastic. Good talking with you, Chad, and we'll look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you so much, George. Anytime, my friend. You guys have a great night. Love it.
Okay, Chad. Bye-bye. Well, that wraps it up for us. We've had a good night and a good talk. I hope that you got as much from this conversation with Chad Lilly and Inner Circle Publishing as I did. He does a superb job. And please come back next week. Remember, we've got a spiritual dominatrix Tommy managed to round up from somewhere down under in Australia. And what I would suggest you do is, in the meantime, between here and there, is accentuate the positive and have a fantastic day.